What's up, YouTube? Been a while since a couple days ago when I made that introduction video to the Audi project. I've been working on a lot of stuff. I took a couple short videos yesterday while I was working, but I don't have any type of video editing software to kind of like mux clips together. So I'm going to be going through everything as best as I can in one shot today. Side effect of that, you're not going to see as much of like the in-process stuff as you might have otherwise. But regardless, I'll go through it best I can. I did get my oil pressure sender gauge thing that I was working up here taken care of. That should be good. I guess to start, so the component speakers, the Alpine Type S's, basically this is the stock component mid-range. You can see it kind of has this like plastic housing thing that's built into the actual speaker itself. It's all like one unit. So basically I made two MDF rings out of that 1/2-inch material there. You can kind of see the outline of the one right there. Per side to give me a 1-inch spacing, just to give me enough depth so I don't hit the window regulator. Made two of those for each side, mounted the speakers to those, pretty straightforward. Wired the passive crossovers in the door, and then the Alpine Type S tweeter actually is like identical in size to the stock tweeter. Which has like this clip mechanism, so it clipped right in, but I just went ahead and put a couple dabs of hot glue on the back just to make sure it's good. So both component speakers are wired up. Those are all good to go. Basically what I chose to do, since these cars have a plug at the door joint rather than a regular through grommet, I left the stock speaker wiring all the way from there up to the deck where the wires were originally fed from the head unit. And then at that point I connected two 14 gauge wires that run all the way back and down back to the amp stuff. So I guess that transitions into that. First things first, you were talking about I was talking about making that subfloor to allow room to mount things in the bottom for amps. So this is what I came up with. Basically it's just a square board that slides all the way forward in this plastic tray, and yeah, you can see I've got the audio pipe APMI 1500. I went ahead and cut all my zero gauge down the side. All my stuff screwed in now, which is what I really was going for, so it's all secure, not flopping around. All my extra RCAs and stuff are just bundled back there. It doesn't look the best, but I mean, what can you do? The sundown RCAs are super nice though. You can kind of see those guys there. Got all the wire. Got all 4 gauge OFC wire at least from the 2 amps back to that, and then as you can see I clearly have enough room. I kind of designed it with the provision that the second amp, the APMI, would live right there. So you can also see I've got these two little dowels. Not sure how well they're coming up on camera, but basically those just are there to provide support for the floor that I made. I chose to put them on this board rather than on the bottom of the floor just because I knew there'd be wires right in this middle part, and I didn't want to risk pulling the floor out and ripping the wires out with the dowels hanging off the bottom. So I just painted those black, screwed them in from the bottom, and they do the job nice. But everything turned out nice. I'm kind of anal with wiring. I'm not as bad as some, I'm sure, but everything's zip tied copiously. And everything's all tuned up already. You can see I got the little lead hanging out the back there for the sub. Basically that'll just, floor will go in and they'll just kind of tuck over the top. But everything else is all wired and hooked up in that regard. In terms of the floors, I ended up with 2 pieces. Basically this is the main piece that goes towards the back section, this is a 2-foot section of wood here. And then what I had to do to get the height that I needed was I had to add another 1/2-inch strip of MDF on each side to the bottom side, which basically just rests over the rails, and that gave me the height I needed. And then basically all this piece here is to provide a little bit of structural support to the middle of this board, just so it doesn't, it's not as prone to bowing this way. But it also provides a ledge for the other piece to set on. So this goes in there first, and then the other piece kind of goes in and sets like that. I think it'll be probably too hard for me to maneuver all this and film, but I will take this smaller piece here, which is the one that fits closer to the back. You see it kind of has that curve to it. I just used the stock panel to, sorry for the wicked camera here, to match that curve. It works pretty well, but yeah, so basically that just sits in there like that. Pretty nice, fits pretty well to the edge here. I was going to put like a little handle here, but because of how high I have it lifted up, I can actually just kind of like reach my finger underneath this corner to pull it up. So, but yeah, basically that other board slides in there first up to the backs of the back seats, and then this one finishes it off so you can kind of see what I'm working with, and that basically gives me all the height I need to mount all these amps down here. I will have to think about in the future when I do go to the 1500s, if they're at a lower ohm load like half, which they're looking like it might be 0.66 per amp, so I might be okay. But in the instance I do need to add a second battery, what I'll likely have to do is take these distribution blocks, move them forward closer up to that space there, and then here I'll put basically a 1/0 gauge to 2/0 gauge distribution block. One of the 0 gauges will go out and feed these for the amps, and then the other two open spots will run 2 0 gauge wires out and over next to where those ones go out, and they'll go up to feed a secondary battery, which would likely end up living in the little you know, when you set a box up against seats, you end up with like this weird triangle of space between the backs of the back seats. I'd likely try to get a battery that fits behind the box in the corner of the seat, and then just run the wires down into the compartment. So trying to think of everything ahead of time so I don't have to do work twice. When you set up a new car like this with that mentality, it definitely takes a lot of time. I got the better part of 2.5 days since I last saw where the car was at, or you guys saw where the car was at, to get here. I just got done setting all the gains and stuff, so I got to throw the deck back in there. But after that's done, it should be all polished and ready to go. So it might be a little bit of time before the next update. It all kind of depends. I do have that sub and box that's in here now for sale. I kind of want to sell that last. As you can imagine, I just don't want to be subless for too long. I also have these like stocker Audi wheels I'm trying to sell, and basically I'm trying to pay for everything that I want to put in here just with stuff, just trying to hustle some stuff to get it rather than have to spend the money out of pocket. It's always kind of fun to do it that way, so trying to do that. Tentatively, for the space that I have, I think the plan is going to be 310s, more than likely SA10s, firing up with a side fire arrow port. So basically 3 subs. Let me see if I can kind of point it out here. You kind of have like a sub, and a sub, and the box would come, say, all the way back, you know, to here when it hits the hatch, and then the arrow port would be right back here, firing to the driver's side towards this cubby panel. 6-inch arrow port. The box that I've spec'd out is around 3.2-ish cubic feet. Shouldn't be too big. It should easily fit under this provision for the little privacy shade thing. I want to keep that, you know, in case the car is parked somewhere. I can cover everything up at least. So it should fit all underneath of that ridge right there, and it should basically only be as wide as the 60 seat. So this is a 60/40 rear seat, as they call it. I'm basically trying to keep the box only as wide as the 60, so that way I still have this completely unobstructed in the instance I do want to, you know, if I want to grab a sheet of 2x4 foot wood, I can still slide it in there tall ways, and it still has some utility. And if I ever need anything bigger than that, I can just always pull the box out. But that's kind of what I'm thinking. So like I said, it'll be a second one of these amps, and then 3 SA10s is kind of what we're thinking. Everything's now in place to be able to do that. It's kind of what I wanted to get the platform set. So in the future, all I have to do is add an amp and wire it, build a box, add the subs, and we're pretty much there otherwise. So like I said, it might be a little while for the next update video, depending on you know, what sells, what doesn't sell, and you know what the money's like. As always, you guys all know and feel that, I'm sure. So once we get that situated, I'll be sure to update you guys with whatever the next update is. So I appreciate you guys watching. I wish I could give more detail for those of you who care to watch more detail, but maybe if I can try to find some software in the future, I can do that. So anyway, until next time, I appreciate it, guys. Talk to you.